Welcome back to the Fantasy Price Check. Today we're going to get into Cam Akers. Will Cam Akers be able to help you during the fantasy football playoffs, and should you be buying him in Dynasty leagues? That's what we're going to be getting into today. If you're new to the channel, we review fantasy football players, so if you're not already subscribed, go ahead and hit the subscribe button down below so you don't miss another price check like this one. Let's get into Cam Akers. Cam Akers is coming off a game where he had his first NFL career rushing touchdown and scored double-digit fantasy football points in half-point PPR leagues. Against the 49ers, he had 9 carries, 84 rushing yards, and a touchdown. And that's because Cam Akers busted off a 61-yard touchdown. Let's go ahead and look at this play.
Rams starting just beyond their own 30. Cam Akers is loose. Cam Akers. All the way inside the 10 of the 49ers.
Cam Akers has been a bust this year. If you drafted him, you probably spent a 5th or a 6th round pick on him, and he's done absolutely nothing for your fantasy football team, so you probably ended up dropping him. That's not all of his fault because injury has been a factor. In week 2 against the Philadelphia Eagles, he suffered a rib injury which kept him out or limited him over the next 5 weeks. If you faded Cam Akers in drafts, you probably did so because we were hearing that the Rams were going to use a 3-man committee backfield with Cam Akers, Darryl Henderson, and Malcolm Brown. If you said 3-man committee, no thanks, not interested, you were right. And if you drafted Cam Akers, you probably thought that Cam Akers was going to emerge in this backfield, and he probably would have if he didn't suffer that rib injury in week 2 against the Philadelphia Eagles. In the season opener against Dallas Cowboys, it was Malcolm Brown that was getting the majority of the snaps and carries, but it was Cam Akers who was right behind him, and then it was Darryl Henderson. Malcolm Brown had 60% of the snaps, Cam Akers had 33% of the snaps, and then Darryl Henderson had 4% of the snaps. Since that week 1 game, Darryl Henderson has outcarried Malcolm Brown 117 to 69, but Malcolm Brown has outsnapped Darryl Henderson 326 to 280. Now that Cam Akers is back and healthy, this is what we got in terms of snaps in week 12. We had 25 snaps for Malcolm Brown, 20 snaps for Darryl Henderson, and 17 snaps for Cam Akers. And here's what we got in terms of carries. 3 carries for Malcolm Brown, 10 carries for Darryl Henderson, and 9 carries for Cam Akers. The downside for Cam Akers is that he's part of a 3-man committee and the Rams don't use him in the passing game at all. He's had just 3 receptions on the season, and I only expect him to get about 9 to 10 carries per game while he's splitting carries with Darryl Henderson and Malcolm Brown. So you really have to hope that the Rams call Cam Akers' number at the goal line in order to get a good fantasy football game out of him. So is Cam Akers going to help you win your fantasy football championship this year? Probably not, because I don't see him getting the volume because Darryl Henderson is still very much involved and Malcolm Brown is still getting a ton of snaps. Let's shift over to the question of whether you should be buying Cam Akers in Dynasty leagues. I like Cam Akers as a prospect. He's 5'10", 217 pounds. He runs hard and he's shifty. He has a great combination of both power and elusiveness. When you watch his highlights at Florida State, he makes some plays that make you go, wow. I'm going to be linking to some of his Florida State highlights up in the info card above and then down in the description. During his junior year, Cam Akers rushed for 1,144 yards and had 14 rushing touchdowns on 231 carries, and he also caught 30 receptions for 225 receiving yards and 4 receiving touchdowns. Keep in mind that was behind a notoriously bad Florida State offensive line. The college production checks out. We then get to his athletic profile. He has a 40 time of 4.47 and an 89th percentile speed score, and this guy was Florida State's offense in college. He has a dominator rating of 39.8%, which measures the percentage of his team's yards and touchdowns. And the burst score and spark score in the 60th percentile are fine. So Cam Akers is an extremely productive college running back with very good athletic measurables. Let's talk about draft capital. Cam Akers was the 4th running back selected in the 2020 NFL Draft. He was drafted right after Jonathan Taylor and ahead of J.K. Dobbins. The Rams used their 52nd overall pick in the 2nd round in order to draft him. Here's what's interesting to me though. The Rams didn't have a 1st round pick. They traded that away in order to acquire Jalen Ramsey. So Cam Akers was their first pick in the draft. You understand the pick because the Rams released Todd Gurley, but they already had Darryl Henderson and Malcolm Brown on the roster. Did they really need to pick a running back with their first pick in the draft when they had bigger holes on their team at more important positions? Apparently they decided that Cam Akers was the highest guy on their board and decided to draft him. Malcolm Brown is also in the last year of his deal, so the Rams could have been thinking ahead and also concerned about Darryl Henderson's lackluster rookie season. Next year, Malcolm Brown should be gone unless he happens to come back on a team-friendly deal, so the Rams' 3-man committee should turn into a 2-man committee. And next year, Cam Akers should be the primary ball carrier for the Rams. I expect him next year to get about 12 to 16 carries per game and also get all of the goal line work. The only downside that I see for Cam Akers next year is his lack of usage in the passing game. You may be able to buy Cam Akers cheap in Dynasty Leagues. If you're able to get him for a 2nd round pick, I would go ahead and do that. You may have some fantasy football owners that have soured on him because of his disappointing rookie season. I would be willing to trade a late 1st round pick to acquire Cam Akers. I believe that he's going to have a very solid 2021 fantasy football season. I believe that he's going to be a weekly starter as an RB2 next season. Cam Akers is underpriced. The buying window in Dynasty may be closing. Buy him while you can. Guys, if you enjoyed this price tag, give it a thumbs up. If you want to check out more of our price tags, I'm going to be throwing up a playlist to all of our breakout alerts right over there, so be sure to check that out. And don't forget to subscribe below. I'll see you guys on the next one.